it should be good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Snoop Dogg. Only one. I think it should be good.
Hey everybody, really appreciate you joining us today. Pull out my notes here so we can jump into to the interview today. My name is Ben Cutler. I am the co-founder and head of sales at Match Data Pro. Please feel free to contact me directly or check out our website at matchdatapro.com to see how we can save you time and money simplifying the complexities of data management. Really appreciate everyone joining today. Again, great to have you here. We're broadcasting live to LinkedIn and YouTube. Really great to have everyone here today. Really appreciate the support of all of our friends, colleagues, partners, clients, followers, and subscribers. Appreciate you all being here today. Please type into the chat or comments, say hello. It'd be great to hear from you. We really appreciate that. Today, we're interviewing a very important Match Data Pro customer and partner, Charles Boise, who I'll bring in stage now. I'll bring onto the stage now, and we'll run through a quick introduction before I start the interview here today. Hey, Charles, great to see you again. Really appreciate you doing this today. How are you?
Hey, Ben, greetings from Hyderabad, India. Good to be with you.
Awesome, awesome. What time is it again over there on your side of the world?
Yeah, we're looking at 10:30 p.m. on Friday.
Wow. Okay. And you don't sleep much?
No.
Okay.
I'm doing my I do my India shift, and now I'm on my North American shift. So this is perfect timing.
Awesome. Awesome. Really appreciate you doing this, sincerely. I'm going to run through a quick introduction of Charles here, and then we're going to get into an interview, a variety of different questions here. The live event today, could run 20, 30, 40 minutes. We'll just kind of play it by ear, so to speak, as we go here. So again, just a quick introduction of Charles here. Really appreciate you doing this. Charles has a Master of Science and a variety of degrees and certifications, specifically in healthcare informatics. He's a registered nurse, and among other certifications, he has the NIBC, the Informatics Nursing, CP, HIMS, Certified Professional in Healthcare Information Management Systems, CPDHTS, the Certified Professional in Digital Healthcare Transformation Strategy, and he's the Chief Technology Officer at Blue Book Services. Charles started his career in healthcare as a trauma and critical care nurse. Additionally, Charles is an assistant clinical professor at Stony Brook University, where he developed and teaches the analytics elective concentration in the Applied Health Informatics graduate program. Charles is a former president of the American Nursing Informatics Association and is a preceptor of nursing informatics at Vanderbilt School of Nursing. Super impressive background there, Charles. Would you like to tell us, just take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you'd like here. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your background or what you do like day to day, or how you help organizations and your clients today?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, thank you very much for the the kind words and the nice introduction. I left the bedside probably a little bit over 20 years ago with the intention of bringing technology to healthcare, and as that progressed, really understanding how the data needs of healthcare, and in my present role, the data needs of produce. So if you think about healthcare, what we eat is a good part of our healthcare. So it's kind of cool that I've kind of made that transition. Truth be known, I worked in produce in my younger years. So when they asked me to help them out, it made sense. First thing I did is I ran to their office. opened up the book of 1982. I'm dating myself, and there was my name. So that was pretty cool to be in that. But really, I am very, very passionate about helping folks with data. And we all know things aren't clean. Things aren't in the order that we'd like them to be. And it's up to us to get them in, get that all sorted out so that when folks are, whether they're doing data visualizations, they're doing reports, whether they're building, AI models, whether they're building language models with the proper data and so forth, it's up to us to get everything all straightened out. And, that's kind of why we're here today, really talking about, various processes to make that happen.
It's really great. I really appreciate that. And one of the themes or topics that you kind of touched on is fit for purpose, which I think is a really interesting topic. I mean, we talk about like data quality, and we've got a lot of tools out there and things like that. But at the end of the day, for each new use case, you typically need to put some work into the data behind what you're doing, be it a report or a new system that you're deploying, or cleaning up an existing system to make it, to help make operations more efficient, or the reporting of activities that are being recorded within that system more understandable, right? Really appreciate that. I remember when, thinking back how we first met months ago, I remember when you contacted us. I think it was a Sunday night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, you're right.
And so you were looking for a data matching solution to help with sales forecasting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely.
Okay. And if I remember, you said that you traditionally, the data matching for sales forecasting, or data matching for any other purposes, you would try to do that like in Python, or maybe even like contract out the work or something along those lines. And this time it was something had happened. It was a little bit different. You wanted to kind of go at this in a different way. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more
Sure.
about what
Yeah.
happened?
What led to connecting with your team?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all have our Jupyter notebooks. We all have our Python code. So we code stuff up for fuzzy matching and all that good stuff. And then something else comes along. Oh my God! Now there's somebody put a comma in there. Okay, let me correct that. Okay, now there's two spaces. Okay, let me take care of that. Oh, now now there's no space. So it just goes on and on and on and on. And that gets kind of tedious. It's not a whole lot of fun. Worst of all is when you think you got it right and you run these jobs, and Ben, some of these jobs can have thousands of rows. We're not talking a few hundred and whatnot that we could go in visually and take care of it. We're talking thousands and tens of thousands, and sometimes 50 to 150,000. So you think you got it all, you do what you need to do, and then either you consume it yourself and deliver a report, or worse yet, you give it to somebody else to use, and then that's where they find your defects. They're not data defects, because you own them now, because you're the one that said that everything's been matched and everything's good to go. And the reality is it's not, and you weren't aware of it. So that's kind of what led to me doing all these searches and so forth. And, I found you, and I was really looking for an organization that would, had people behind it. And it wasn't, just a sales kind of thing. And you know how that went. I called you, I showed you what we were doing. You jumped right in, grabbed my data sets. We worked it together so that at the end of the session, I actually knew how to use the tool. And, that's what I've been doing, kind of ever since. And, we'll get into the other details of this, but yeah, so that's kind of the story. And, here we are now talking about it. And I'm using my Jupyter notebook for things that they were meant for, as opposed to, doing this. And, the other thing that's kind of fun and kind of interesting, but it's not always the wisest thing to do, because a lot of times we have proprietary data. and you don't necessarily want to throw it into GTP, Claude, or any of the rest of them, because hey, you just sent your data off to God knows where. The ability to keep it in a closed environment is really important. And on the healthcare side, which I still deal with, it's even more critical there.
Makes really good sense, and really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been great working with you. I remember the day very well, and we appreciate your partnership. We appreciate your business with us, and appreciate all of your kind of support and endorsements. What we've seen is there's a big gap in the market for simple to use data management technology, simple to use fuzzy matching technology, technology that just works, technology that you can kind of pick up and start using right away, point and click, technology that doesn't require so much coding and scripting and formulas and things like that. Technology that allows you and your products or solutions or processes to be more agile and more efficient and more collaborative and more productive and less reliant on third parties or third party services. So yeah, again, really appreciate all of this. What when we talk about like data matching or fuzzy matching, it's a big topic. Some people say, one of our partners at Sensing, it's a dark science, right? Not a lot of people really get into the nitty gritty of like matching, fuzzy matching, record linkage, that kind of thing. I'm just curious about kind of your thoughts about using scripting, coding, formulas, Python, things like that when it comes to fuzzy matching. Yeah, again, thinking back to your experience and why you came to Match Data Pro. Can you go a little bit deeper in terms of
Sure.
Why better technology is needed, maybe?
Sure. So if you look at a lot of these matching exercises that we do, or whether it be taking a data set and comparing it to something that we know is true to get that data set in line, or let's say in the case of a merger and acquisition, where from a medical record perspective, we now have a whole giant new patient population that we have to bring into our environment. And many times in that case, we have patients that are in both places, so the company that's being acquired as well as the parent company, and you got to get that right. There's no way to do that without getting it right. But if you really get down to the kind of the nitty gritty, whether you're using Python, whether you're using R, whether you're using Excel, the problem that you really run into when you're using these tools is that, and I'm going to take this back to some of my previous work, is there's a huge cognitive load for the person that's trying to do all of this stuff, especially when you end up with multiple spreadsheets and you got to remember this thing, and this thing. That's tough. I mean, it really is tough. Cognitively, we're good about remembering anywhere from 4 to 7. Some of us in the 3 to 4 range, but using your technologies and so forth, we don't have to do that. We just have to look at various samples of the output and then provide some guidance, if you will, and let the tools do the rest, so that at the end of this exercise, we have a product that we feel confident in. And I think that's really a number one advantage. The other really advantage of doing it this way is that a lot of times, and I'll give you an example of trade shows. So a lot of us do a lot of trade shows and so forth. Because we participate in the trade show, we may get a list of anywhere from, it could be a smaller one of 5,000, or it could be a large trade show of 60,000 participants. We always get those files. Are they correct? No, they're kind of hideous. So we have to bring in some of our source data, and then if we're looking at addresses, in phone numbers, in zip codes. There may be some other information that we need to bring in, so that at the end of the day, we want a a data set that we trust 100%. So by using these fuzzy matching tools and so forth, we can get to where we need to get to. And then depending on what the sample size is, we do the math, and then we do a visual inspection based on what the sample size for that activity should be. We then are very confident. We then, and this is a really big one, we're confident now we can go ahead and load it in our our system, whether it be a Salesforce or HubSpot, whatever that CRM might be. And then we feel confident that what we've loaded, so that as people start working those systems and whatnot, they're not finding something and going, oh my God, we're off by 3 rows. Oh geez, those addresses are 3 rows. Now what do we do? We've got it loaded up. How are we going to take it out? Now don't take it all out, because we've already started working some of these leads, and we've got notes attached, and now you got yourself a really, really big problem. And think about it on the healthcare side, especially now we're loading all this stuff into electronic medical record, and that's a big issue as well. So whether it's healthcare or your business, it's got to be right. So I'll revert back to cognitive load, and why do you want to do this to yourself is probably the biggest issue, and there's really no reason to do that.
That's really great. You touched on so many points there, and I took so many different notes and made so many different comments. Thinking about healthcare and thinking about like data matching, or even like duplication. I've read studies that look at kind of duplicate data in healthcare data, and going back to like errors in the data and things like that. That's where we get duplicate data. That's why we have like mismatching information across siloed systems and things like that. So mismatching information within system, also mismatching information across siloed systems, and it's obviously very, very difficult to deal with, especially at such large volumes.
And Ben, real quick, I can give you a example of how that happens. So
yeah, please.
You come into the emergency room, or you come into a clinic, and you've got somebody there at the desk. Your name is John Smith. Well, that screen size is X. There's a ton of John Smiths in there. Are you going to roll and scroll until you find the right one? Probably not. You're gonna create another John Smith. This happens more frequently than you would expect. And so again, you don't want those duplicate records. At some point in time, you got to clean all that up. And this is a really, really good way to do it. How we did it in the past was extremely laborious. And you really don't need to do that. But this duplicate record happens in, regardless of your vertical. That is a serious problem that, needs to, to be undone for, quite a few reasons.
And then if I can extend upon that example, yeah, it's like, as individuals, like sometimes we give different information to the same organization or entity, and register different organization very intentionally for different reasons. And then in other scenarios, if you think about the way that things work, oftentimes we have multiple email addresses and multiple phone numbers and multiple different addresses, and then over time, right, changing address over time. And same thing with business and products and addresses, and it's almost as if it were a black hole. It does become very, very challenging to keep up with like the quality of data over time as everything continues to evolve. And just because naturally we're complex, right? And so is data. It's a great example. I had a lot more. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the
Sure.
next question here. So generally, just thoughts about the relevance of, from a CTO perspective, thoughts about, and don't worry about the lights. If you can't see or hear me, or if you have any troubles there, just let me know.
We're good.
Otherwise, we'll keep moving. Just general thoughts about the relevance of, having like the right technology, simple to use technology that doesn't come at some, 7, 8, 10-figure cost, technology that can be adopted very quickly, that doesn't require a ton of like technical skills or a ton of learning over the course of, 6 and 12 months. Like from a CTO's perspective, what how do those that kind of criteria, like what do you think about when you're making technology decisions? How important is that to you?
Sure. So from a technical perspective, I want, whatever, applications that we're looking at to be spread out over a broad base of folks. Um, I don't want applications that you have to have a, very, very high level of, let's say, data maturity in this case. Um, I want tools that everyone can use so that there are no bottlenecks. There's no conga line waiting for somebody to do, deduping, matching, data processing and so forth. Uh, you should be able to do this on your own. And, with your application, you can do this on your own. This speeds, everything along. And then if you think about it from a departmental perspective, everybody then uh, is able to do what they need to do and not, again, have a big old line, waiting for the person that has the coding skills to make these technologies happen. So, I'll even, use the example of, something like, Tableau, a data visualization tool. I use that in the classroom. Uh, I can put people of very low maturity visualization and very high, and they can all use that.
Hmm.
Same with your application. Uh, you can have some, novice data engineers and the very skilled data engineers. The skilled ones, this allows them to work at their level, right? So they get what they need to do from this application and they go on to the other things they can do. And then on the lower maturity level, this is a great stepping stone for them to, build up their competencies and so forth. And so it works across the board. And that's kind of how I do technology decisions. I don't want to bring in technologies that are so narrow focused that I have to bring in 3 or 4 of the same to match a skill level. I want something that can be used by all skill levels.
Thank you so much for for sharing that perspective. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think bottleneck, kind of relying on a single point of failure, so to speak, of a single technical person or department that is handling a variety of different requirements across the business to make data more fit for purpose, I think is a huge uh, thing of the past. Let's just say, uh, certainly costly, right? Again, speed and really just kind of facilitating autonomy and reducing bottlenecks and if increasing efficiency and things like that. If you're, what I've seen is a lot of the times when you're relying on kind of a technical person or group of people within the organization to satisfy a variety of different business requirements, and everyone's on a deadline, that the requirements are not often fully rationalized. The solution is not often fully effective, and a lot more, time, money, and resources goes into, um, getting things kind of the way that they need to be. So, Charles, next question here. Thoughts about, and I think we kind of touched on this one the last time, so I don't want to go too deep if this is repetitive, but thoughts about the relevance of just being able to quickly and confidently transform big data. Like, thinking about the future. How important is this, right? Especially thinking about the past and the way that this has been done more traditionally. Thinking about the future and being able to transform big data quickly and confidently. And like you said, being able to share the technology. How important do you think that is moving towards the future? Do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts, comments?
yeah. But first, I'm gonna. So if everybody's wondering why things went dark, we did have
Oh,
a power failure here, so I'm on
okay.
backup power. And what's really good is I put a backup power on the router, so we're good. We should be
Okay,
good to
all
go
right.
throughout this whole
Good for you.
exercise. But
Good for you.
uh, Yeah, kind of getting back to the question at hand, and I use the term, Ben. I use the term future proofing.
Hmm.
Uh, it's really important that we understand the technologies that we're bringing into our environment, and that we really understand those partners that we've picked, and really understand the technologies that they've built their solutions on. Because as you stated, um, we're going to be dealing with larger and larger and larger data sets. We don't want to get locked into something that's going to be obsolete in 3 to 4 years. Uh, I know your stack, and I know that you're not going to be refactoring it in 3 to 5 years, because you've taken the right approach to services behind your tech and whatnot. So that is really really important to me. But also that what's important is uh, it's really super critical that as we you know go from just a BI perspective, and
Hmm.
even from a predictive analytics perspective into this generative AI, agentic AI um, environment, the requirement for that data to be even more pristine than we've used to in the past is even more and more critical. So it's really important that we have your application so that as those things happen over time, we're able to address that. Uh, I don't want somebody in my environment asking, a question, behind, my paywall or in a proprietary application, really important information, and getting 5 addresses back, getting, five, who's the CEO of, this corporation. And because it's been, John C, John, and we know all these things, that it comes back and it looks garbled and whatnot. So it's really important that we get this, right the first time. So as we're building these models out, that when those questions are asked, the return is accurate. Accurate is, extremely accurate is probably the better way to state it. So you think about it, if we're using traditional BI tools and so forth, then we have the ability to see, that doesn't quite look right. But when you're talking about a generative AI situation, you want what's returned to your client to be 100% accurate. So you got to get the data to that point so you can get that back.
I want to share a story with you. I really appreciate that. So we've worked with clients small and large all over the world, thousands of organizations in all different industries, all different lines of business. So we're talking about federal organizations, we're talking about state organizations, state agencies, we're talking about private organizations as well, very very large, very very small. And we've seen kind of the implications or the consequences rather of these kind of issues all over the world in all different industries in all different lines of business. There are very significant impacts. So thinking about law enforcement, we've seen some pretty serious situations where not being accurate or agile enough with the way that the organization kind of manages their data, it is I simplify and say costing the organization money, but it goes it's much, much more serious than costing the organization money. There are, the consequences of these kind of things, like you mentioned, LLM and the end user, the consequences extend far beyond the organization's wall, right? The consequences of not having the right data, or not being agile enough with the data, or not investing enough in the data management and getting enough people involved, extend well beyond the organization walls, and the consequences are really quite serious oftentimes. So really appreciate that. So let's talk about Match Data Pro for a minute. Just thinking about your experience and thinking back a few months here, want to touch on kind of a few topics here, and just would love your thoughts, right?
Sure.
Just honest feedback, and I really appreciate that from you. Several different points. I'm thinking about like ease of use and simplifying complex data operations. I've got several other points here, but why don't we start with that one? Just general ease of use and simplifying what is generally quite complex.
Sure. I think a couple of things. I think initially from a security perspective, you support MFA. So I
Hmm.
very very confident in the security aspects. And then
Yep.
from a healthcare perspective, you think about it, you do have a SaaS offering, absolutely,
Hmm.
but I need that in my environment.
Yep.
That's just the way it is.
Yep.
Whether that's Azure, whether that's in my data center. I've been using your SaaS product because that's working for me on the Blue Book side of things.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, intuitive. But what I really like is I'm using it, from just a day-to-day perspective, is there are options as far as joins and things of that sort. So I can see the efficacy of using one methodology versus another methodology, and then you give me feedback on how well that did. I can visually then take a look at it, make my decisions, and continue going forward. So it's kind of Sherpa like, if you will, where you're
Hmm.
kind of guided through the process. So at the end of the process, you've learned a lot and you feel
Hmm.
very confident. So a novice person can go into your application and at the end of the day be where they need to be. And I think it's also to note, somebody that's experienced um, can do this quite rapidly, but something that we haven't touched on, which is critical. Uh, I can set this up as a job as part of my data pipeline because I know these data sources that are coming in are going to need this as whether it's step one, step two, or somewhere in that pipeline. This is going to happen, and I can set it up so that it happens as part of that with no human intervention. And then, of course, when I get these crazy, data sets that, somebody in the organization goes, hey, I just came back from, wherever, and now I've got this, data set. Can you match it up with this and this? I have this hypothesis that, I want to do this. And yeah, we can do that. Give me your data sets, load them up, and then just start, working them through. Where before in the Python world or the SQL world or, you name it, we got to start coding, from scratch and so forth. It's going to take a long time. Nobody has that time element anymore. We've got to do too many things. So this allows us to do what we need to do and then kind of get out of it, if you will.
I appreciate that. I love the answer. Thank you. What about, let's look at
Hey,
overall.
and
Yeah,
we're
go ahead.
back. We're
Oh, did you
back.
drop? I looked down and I missed. Okay, so you dropped down for, no worries. Good, good.
Let there be light.
What about platform utility? So I don't know how much thought you've given this, but just thinking about other tools you've used and your experience with Match Data Pro. What kind of feedback can you give us about the overall platform utility?
Sure. I think even more than the utility, which I'll touch on, is the fact that you listen to me and you listen to others. So from a platform perspective, it's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not because you think I need this feature or function, but I need this feature or function. And you truly understand that the market is not between your ears. The market is out there. So you actually, solicited and make sure that, things are working as expected. So from a platform perspective, it fits the needs for myself in
Mm-hmm.
that, SaaS environment. Also fits the needs, from a, I need my own, copy, if you will, even though I'm going to put it in Azure. I've got this, high trust SOC 2. I've got all these ISOs and so forth, and it works well in that. So I think the adaptability of it from a platform perspective, just, it fits the bill. Where some of the other, technologies that I use are a little bit more rigid I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the proper term. So I've got to conform to the tech as opposed to tech conforming to my needs.
I love that. Yeah, a lot of the feedback. I've heard the word rigid and cumbersome so many times in my career, just referring to more
Yeah.
like legacy technology, right? Traditional kind of technology to doing different data management activities. Really appreciate it. Let's move on here. This is less about Match Data Pro and just more just looking for some feedback from you, and really want to kind of put the spotlight on data, so to speak. How important is, and we touched on this earlier, but how important is trust in data? And if we can make the question a little bit more complex, why is that important in like fuzzy matching?
Sure. So I'll
No
give
wrong
you,
answer. No
no,
wrong
no, no.
answer. Sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
I'll give you a couple of, so from a trust factor, myself or those that are doing the data engineering work, um, we have an audience. We have some stakeholders. We have folks that depend on us, and there's nothing worse than delivering a data set and it not being right. What's even worse than that is being in a room where the product that you just delivered is now on a screen and it's not right. And now you got all eyes on you. That's not a really comfortable place to be. So having trust in the methods that you put together in your product, so that I feel comfortable now that it's my part of my data pipeline. So I know what's coming out of this is going to be the same every time. And if there is an issue, then it stops, and I can, as a human, get involved in, hey, this data set that's normally comes in this way has changed a little bit. Now we got to, do something different. Again, the trust factor, initially is on the technology that you're using to get the job done, but the trust factor is really your constituents on you, that what you deliver is accurate, and it absolutely has to be. You think about healthcare, there's no margin there whatsoever.
That's such a great answer. Yeah, and so just making some notes here. I mean, we're talking about when when there isn't trust in the data, you've got problems internally to the organization, externally to the organization, scoping across employees, business partners, customers, products that you're delivering, services that you're delivering, adoption of new technologies, policy impacts, personal consequences. So yeah, I think from what we've seen there, the consequences go far and wide.
Yeah, and like we talked earlier, as these data sets get bigger and bigger and bigger, you can't, if you're going to deliver 150,000 lines, rows, you're not going to, how long would it take you to look at each one visually? It's not going to happen. So you got to have trust on the technology, that what you're delivering, people trust you. So that's how it works.
150 rows by 10, 20, 30,
Yeah.
50 columns, right? How many cells do you
Oh,
have
yeah.
there? Yeah, it's crazy. Awesome. We've got a few other questions here, and we'll be wrapping up, I think, likely in the next 5 or 7 minutes here.
Sure.
Please, again, folks on LinkedIn, YouTube, please type into us, say hello, let us know where you're joining from today. If you've got any questions, feel free to throw those questions out there. We'll see if we can take questions before the end of the hour here. But let's finish up with a few of the final interview questions here today. Uh, Generally, do you have any thoughts about when you should be coding data pipelines and solutions versus, you know, purchasing something out of the box? Do you have any?
Sure. Sure. A couple of things. One, we talked about maturity levels of the folks in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
so from a maturity perspective, I like to use tools. I like to bring tools into the organization and not have so much reliance on coding, if you will. If you're doing a lot of coding, make sure whoever's doing it is well documenting it. A lot of times they don't because it's job security for them. Um, if they get hit by the bus, then you got to figure this thing out. But if you're talking about, it's a lot easier to troubleshoot an application than it is to troubleshoot lines and lines and lines of code. It really is, to be honest with you. And a lot of the work that we all do on a data perspective, it's not a one and done thing. This is going to come up. There's a lot of repeatability to what we do. So using applications to expedite, especially in repeatable, in a repeatable format, is really helpful. And again, we go back to the single point of failure from a coding perspective. If you have to rely on individual or just a few individuals, then there's your bottleneck. But if you have applications where, folks at the department level, whoever thought that people at the departmental level could be doing data visualizations? That was really out of the question, a decade or so ago. It's not. Everybody's doing their own data visualizations, whether it's, Power BI, Tableau, or others. So we now have the ability for most to do data engineering, which is appropriate. They know their data, they know their data sets. They just needed tools that they could use to get the outcomes that they were looking for.
That's great. I think this is likely my final question here, and I might have some comments after this question.
Sure.
But thinking about the healthcare space, we get involved in a lot, again, thousands of customers all over the world, large and small, different lines of business, different industries, different initiatives, everything from digital transformation to migrations to new systems deployment to data quality to, blending external data with internal data. I mean, M&A, merger and acquisition, back to your example there. So many different possibilities that way for data management, data transformation, fuzzy matching. Thinking about the healthcare space, I'm curious, where do you think like the biggest opportunities for a company like Match Data Pro exist?
Sure. I think again, not to beat it to death, but the M&A side of it,
Okay.
the cleanup, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
the deduping of the electronic medical record and
Mm-hmm.
deduping of other systems. I think there's a lot to do there. Also, and we haven't talked about it. I've always been attached to an academic medical center through most of my career, and we do a lot of research. So these tools are very, very important from a research perspective, so that those data sets that we're using are as absolute pristine as we can make them. Very, very important for that aspect as well. So yeah, again, we don't want to be making any type of clinical decisions, operational decisions, financial decisions, or research decisions on data sets that aren't true, that we cannot trust. So your tools help us get to that point.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Well, looking at the time here, and again, a big thanks, Charles. Looking at the time here, I think we can probably wrap it up. I'm not seeing any questions coming in from the audience, at
Cool.
least on my side of things here. But it's been great to see you again. We really appreciate your partnership. We appreciate your business with us. Look forward to a long, a great future ahead of us. Is there do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Sure. One, thank you for inviting me. I always like talking to you, so it was kind of cool to talk with an audience. And I think that and again, thank you for bringing in a tool set that we can all use, regardless of where we are in our careers and where we are from a data maturity level. So definitely appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate all of the feedback. Appreciate you doing this today. Dana, I see your comment. Great to see you. Really appreciate you joining today. Again, thank you everyone from LinkedIn and YouTube for joining today. Please get in touch with me personally after the event if you'd like to get in touch with Charles, or you have some questions about Match Data Pro and maybe how we can help you. We're happy to help. So again, thank you everyone for joining today. I think we can leave it there for today. Charles, again, great to see you. Really appreciate it. And I think we can leave it there for today.
Cool. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.